Joining us now is David Horowitz, the founder of the David Horowitz Freedom Center. The center's mission is to combat the efforts of the radical left and its Islamist allies to destroy American values and disarm the country as it attempts to defend itself in a time of terror. Mr. Horowitz is the editor of Front Page magazine and the author of more than 20 books and publications. His newest book is called A Point in Time: The Search for Redemption in This Life and the Next. And David, it is so great to have you back on Newsmax TV.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, the Freedom Center will be holding its annual Restoration Weekend in South Florida beginning November 17th. Just talk to us about the purpose of Restoration Weekend.
Oh, well, it's a kind of rejuvenation fest at the Breakers here, which is probably the most spectacular resort in America. And we have a stellar cast, Glenn Beck, Herman Cain, Dick Morris, Ann Coulter, Bernie Goldberg. So we have several locals in Palm Beach. And it's to fire up the troops and give them, I guess, some hope in these dark times that we live in.
David, you were raised as a communist and at one point considered yourself a Marxist intellectual and a member of the radical left until 1984, when you decided to vote for Ronald Reagan. For those of our viewers who do not know your story, just talk to us for a second about your evolution as a conservative.
Well, I was brought up in the communist left, which is now the dominant force in the Democratic Party. I was a member of the New Left. I was one of its founders. I edited its largest magazine, Ramparts, until the mid-'70s, when I had raised a lot of money for the Black Panther Party. Actually, it was for a school, and recruited my Ramparts bookkeeper to do their books, and they murdered her. And that terrible event coincided with the American withdrawal from Vietnam. So the left succeeded in forcing America out of Vietnam, and the result was that 2.5 million Indo-Chinese were slaughtered by the communists. And of course the left didn't care, because the left never really cares about what it says it cares. It doesn't care about black people. It didn't care about the Vietnamese. It doesn't care about poor people. It cares about power. And it was a very rude awakening for me. And I was actually depressed for several years and not involved in politics. And in 1984, I voted for Ronald Reagan, and that destroyed my career as a literary figure. I used to be reviewed on the front page of the New York Times, and ever since I have not been reviewed, because the left is like the mafia. You can't leave it.
Well, right now there is a lot of focus on the GOP presidential primary in 2012. What do you think the Republicans need to do to beat President Obama?
Well, they need to learn how to fight as the first order of business. Stop apologizing, stop being nice, stop being polite. Point out the damage that this party, the Democratic Party, is doing. They sabotaged the war in Iraq. They sabotaged our foreign policy in the Middle East. So now we have a real war situation thanks to the Democrats. We have Iran on the brink of nuclear weapons thanks to the Democrats. Stop being nice. I think that's the basic thing. The Democrats claim to be for women, minorities, and the poor. They control all the major inner cities in America. They have their boot heels on the necks of the poor. Why aren't Republicans saying that?
Does Obama win re-election in 2012, or does the GOP go on to defeat him?
Well, I think it could be a landslide in our favor, and I think we could lose. And so I wouldn't be so confident. A lot depends on the candidate. I have to say all of our candidates have vulnerabilities that worry me. And the Democrats are character assassins. That's what they do. They don't have ideas. I mean, it's not like the Democratic Party has some plans to fix things. What they have is the weapons of slander, vilification, and the politics of personal destruction, which is what's going on now with Herman Cain, of course. but it will be whoever the front runner is, be prepared for a personal Armageddon.
You've written extensively on the Tea Party movement. What role do you see the Tea Party playing in 2012?
Well, I think I've said that to me the Tea Party is the most important development in the history of modern conservatism and of this country. If it's out there, it'll be a hugely important force for stiffening the Republican spine, which is the big problem that Republicans have. How did Barack Obama get elected? John McCain said, I'm not going to talk about Billy Ayers like he's yesterday's news. The president was in bed with a terrorist and a racist, and Republicans let him win anyway. Now, that was a Republican failure. It wasn't an Obama success. But I've watched this for 20 years, 25 years. Republicans just don't get it. They're characterologically not suited for the street fight that is politics.
What about the Occupy Wall Street movement? What do you think is their true motivation?
They're communists and they're idiots, the combination. I mean, if you've watched their interviews, you know that they're morons. But what's behind them is the communist movement, the SEIU, ACORN, George Soros, and really the core of the Democratic Party. So that's why you have to pay attention to them.
Is this a spontaneous movement, as some would like us to believe, or is this organized by the left pulling the strings?
Well, I think it's both. I don't think it's like a chicken and an egg question. I think some of the motivation must have been, the Democrats have created this horrific situation in our educational system where you get what looks like a free ride because there are all these student loans that, and it's not a free ride. So you have these kids, they've got $100,000 debt and there's no jobs also, thanks to the Democrats. So I think that became an occasion. And once there's a happening, you have the first Occupy Wall Street, then these big communist unions like the SEIU come in behind it. There's money there, and ACORN. So there's already a very organized left. And there's never been, by the way, an organized right until the Tea Party. There's this big organized left. And so it's kind of a thing that grows. And then, of course, everybody, when you're 20 years old and, kind of stupid, you want to be involved. What's happening? It's exciting. We're making history. No, you're not. You're just dirtying the streets in the neighborhood.
What do you see as the movement's future, and will it play a role in 2012?
Well, Occupy Wall Street is no different from the demonstrations against the World Trade Organization 10 years ago, and of course the demonstration to defend Saddam Hussein, the 100,000 people that were in this, well, actually there were millions. It's the same people, the same phenomenon. This is the old communist left that was demoralized by the collapse of socialism and sort of was dormant for a few years and then came back. And we can expect this to go on and on into the future. You're not going to persuade them. They're going to be there.
In your view, is President Obama the most radical president that we've ever had? And if so...
Oh, easily. Barack Obama comes from the left that I came out of, and except the worst part of it, the weatherman. These are the people in the left who didn't leave when they saw all their lies exposed. I mean, the left had said socialism is the answer, or it still says that. It said America was wrong in Vietnam, and they were wrong. They killed a lot of people. Some of us woke up, but most stayed, and that's who they are, and they're going to be there. Stanley Kurtz wrote a really important book called Radical in Chief, in which he tracked Obama's career. It's entirely within the Marxist revolutionary left. The fact that he's a liar. He makes Bill Clinton look like a Boy Scout and presents himself, at least in the first campaign, as a centrist, as somebody who's going to unite her and so forth. Those were all bald-faced lies. Based on his whole career, you would have known that. But Republicans are very poor at politics. They're good at policy, but they're not good at the warfare that goes on. The Democrats are great at it, and they let Obama survive.
Now, if Obama wins re-election, do you expect him to push a strong socialist agenda? And what would an Obama 2.0 presidency look like?
The lefts shouldn't look at it as a positive thing. The left does not really have a positive agenda. It's an anti-American agenda. Bankrupting the country for a leftist is a good thing, because America is the bad, the ogre. We are the great Satan. So you want to take the great Satan down economically, which they've done, and then you want to take him down militarily, which they're doing. Obama has betrayed all the Americans who died, and all the Iraqis who died fighting against the Saddam regime. Just betrayed them. I haven't seen that word come off one Republican lip. And that's the problem. Republicans are not fighting this battle the way the Democrats are. The Democrats, call Republicans, racist, sexist, homophobes, Islamophobes, and we call them liberals. The heck is that about? We're liberal. We're too liberal. We're too tolerant and too soft. They're not soft.
Last question for you, David. Alleged insider trading by Nancy Pelosi and some members of Congress. What's your reaction to that?
Well, 10 years ago, actually it was 11, in the 2000 campaign, I wrote a little pamphlet called How to Beat the Democrats. And one of the chapters begins that the Democratic Party is composed of communists and crooks. I think that's a perfectly accurate description. It's never about who they say it's about. It's not about women and children and minorities. It's about them, their power. So is it a surprise that Bobby Kennedy Jr. got $1 billion from the government to do some bankrupt green energy scheme? No. And thank Peter Schweitzer for writing this book, very important book, because it exposes the heart of the Democratic Party. It's all about them. This is the ruling class, the Democrats. They run the universities, they run the media, and they run the country, and they run it for themselves. And, I'm waiting for the day I hear a Republican say things like this.
David Horowitz, thank you so much for joining us on Newsmax TV, and congratulations on your newest book, A Point in Time, The Search for Redemption in This Life and the Next, and good luck with Restoration Weekend.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.